there. Spider-Man. What a pass rush by Byrne. See how quickly he got to the edge and got
This is Desmond Johnson on the Bleav and Carolina Panthers podcast, here on the Bleav Podcast Network, the #1 podcast network for professionals. Do you Bleav? If you enjoy the show, please subscribe and rate the show on iTunes. We're available in your favorite directories: iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, Stitcher, Luminary, and TuneIn. You can also find us at Bleav.com and at Bleav Podcast on Twitter.
What's going on, Panther fans? This is a brand new edition of the Bleav and Panther podcast here on Bleav Podcast Networks. Desmond Johnson, Schuyler Callihan from Sports Illustrated, Panthers all-time leading rusher Jonathan Stewart in the house. I think it's the first time we've had all three of us in the house in a while. Now I'm thinking about it. So welcome, gentlemen. Loaded show for you guys today. I know you guys have been waiting for us to come back on and talk about some Panther stuff, and we got some stuff for you. Today, we're going to look at the top 4 quarterbacks in this draft. Matter of fact, as we speak, the Panthers' entire front office apparently is down in Florida for Anthony Richardson's pro day. They've already seen Ohio State's C.J. Stroud. They've seen Alabama's Bryce Young. They've seen Kentucky's Will Levis. They took him out to dinner. They've done all these things with him. We'll dissect the 4 of them. I know, speaking to Schuyler the other day, he was looking at tape. He was looking at tape of Anthony Richardson, I think it was. So we'll talk a little bit about that. Baltimore Ravens versus Lamar Jackson. I really want to get in that one today because it's kind of took another turn since the last time we were on. Lamar basically publicly declaring on social media that he asked for a trade almost a month ago, which was new information that none of us knew. We'll get into some of that and what might be going on because the man hasn't even gotten an offer sheet yet from any team. So we don't know what's happening with that. So we'll figure that out. And then the biggest need on the defensive side of the ball, we spent so much time talking about quarterbacks and that's #1 pick. We've got 6 other picks, and there's some things that we probably need to talk about on the defensive side that need to be addressed with these Carolina Panthers as well. Before we get into the nitty gritty with everything, of course, it's an open mailbag. So if you've got a comment or a take that you want to hit us up with, you can do so, like Kevin Fackelroy, who's here on time during lunch. Good morning, gentlemen. I appreciate you being here, Kev. You can always leave it there with us, and we'll respond in kind. Before we get into that, though, a quick message from our sponsors over at BetOnline. BetOnline remains your #1 source for all your college basketball betting this season. Get analysis of every play, prop, and point at BetOnline. You'll find the latest odds, bracket contests, team matchups, and game trends at BetOnline. Updated odds for everything from live games, the conference championships, right through to the Final Four and the championship game. BetOnline is your college basketball headquarters this season. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to sign up and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Be sure to use our promo code BLEAV, BLEAV, to receive your bonus. BetOnline.ag, where the game starts. And what we'll start is these quarterback evaluations here. I bet a lot of people probably lost some money to BetOnline over the past 2 weeks with this March Madness tournament. Like, I can't even, my bracket made it to, I think, dinner time Thursday before it was just completely obliterated. And then by the time Friday ended, it was just like, and now I'm a Carolina fan, so I wasn't really into it to begin with. And now it's like, this Final Four is the weirdest Final Four probably 2011, the one that had like VCU and Butler, and I think UConn was in it, and that was like the worst championship game ever, UConn and Butler. I hope we're not heading for that on Monday, but we'll see. These top 4 quarterbacks here. Let's start off with you, Stu, because I wanted to get your opinion on Will Levis. I want to start off with Will Levis and Anthony Richardson. And I know Schuyler actually has been watching some tape on Anthony Richardson. What do you know about Will Levis? Because when I saw a picture of him earlier this week, my man got chiseled up from from the end of the college football season to now. Like, he's all like, like, is there any world where the Panthers pick Will Levis at #1 in this draft? And why?
Nah.
That's ready for analysis right there. Like, that's all you need.
It's just, so, like, why are they even? I mean, why is Levis even in this conversation? It feels like they've narrowed it down to 2, right? Young and Stroud.
I mean, listen, you got everyone acts as if like these, like, knocking on wood here, but like, we're human beings. Like, things can happen. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, so you absolutely have to go through the extreme measures of going through the interview process and interviewing all these guys in the sense of, you know, potentially being, you know, the #1 pick. Because they could all potentially be a number one pick given certain circumstances. So you have to go through those worst case scenarios, to play those back and think to yourself, well, if this guy is not available, who's the next guy? And so that's why you have the four that everyone's talking about. But you already know where I stand.
Yeah,
Anthony Richardson.
Anthony Richardson train?
I'm still an Anthony Richardson train. And we could talk about this as we got more show to go, but I got my reasons.
Okay.
And only because I'm on this side of it, right? And I'm able to speak from this side. Now, if my money was on it, I would be thinking a little different. You know what I'm saying? If it was my money, I would be looking at this from a strict data view. Where is the data? I need all the data. And I'm making a decision from that standpoint. Okay. And if it was that, I would be taking Young. If it was Stroud and I cared about people's opinion and didn't want to be chased down the road about why I chose a guy, I'm picking Stroud. But if I'm just going to be out there going, gun ho, hey, I don't care what nobody say. I'm going with my guy, and my guy is Anthony Richardson because the ceiling is just it's too high. And the thing is, he's played 12 games, guy. 12. I'm not knocking him for playing 12 games. It's not, you know what I'm saying? He played 12 games. He put it on film. There's a lot of bad film, but behind that bad film, there's good things. There's been, I've seen the Tennessee game where, early on in the game where he wasn't really capable of reading certain, sit down zones, right? Later on in the game, he corrected that. He remembered those exact same defensive scheme. And he actually was able to hit a triangle across the middle of the field. I mean, that is where there was a mesh. You know what I'm saying? There's a mesh play where you have two receivers crossing the field and you have a hitch coming behind them. He hit that. He read that. Earlier on in the game, he didn't see it. But adjustments, he was able to make adjustments during the game. I mean, those types of things with coaching, he's coachable. He understands the game. He's just not a total raw guy that's out there just willy-nilly. I mean, this guy's clearly capable of playing the quarterback position. And with our coaching staff, I Bleav that is the answer. If it was anybody else's coaching staff, it ain't gonna work out.
Yeah, I feel like it's the coaching staff that's making us look at these quarterbacks a little bit differently than if it was anybody else, really. And I've been on and off the AR boat. He's the one that's like you said, Stu, he's got the biggest ceiling, I guess, or potential. But it could go either way, like potential great or bust. And Schuyler, this is great because now you can counterpoint this because you were saying you were watching tape of Anthony Richardson. What did you see? And did you see anything that gave you cause to be alarmed or anything that caused you to perk up and go, oh, I didn't know he could do that?
There's a lot of both. There's really no point. The two games that stick out to me in particular, because I'm through 3 or 4 games right now, so I still got about 9 more to go or 8 more to go. But the Tennessee game and the Kentucky game are the two I wanted to watch first. That was pretty much his best and worst game of the year. Kentucky game was hard to watch, really, really hard to watch. Like in that game, it was a lot of decision-making errors and it was a lot of pocket movement errors where he wasn't having a good feel in the pocket. Like there was 2 throws in particular. I remember one in the early part of the game, one in the later part of the game, the first part of the game, he didn't step up into the pocket. He didn't climb the pocket, and it ended up being a ball that was like 2 feet over the receiver's head. Would have been easy touchdown on a post route, just missed him high. Later in the game, he comes back, and this time he climbs the pocket into traffic, and he ends up throwing it, and it gets batted down, had no chance at all. So he's got to understand kind of when to climb, when not to climb, stuff like that. But also, too, he did make a really good throw, and it was in the fourth quarter of that game. The game was already over at that point, but he was rolling right. I think it was a play-action fake, dropped it right in the bucket along the sideline on a wheel route. Was just beautiful. And you see those plays, and you're like, okay, there's the reason why he's being talked about so much, because of the accuracy, the deep throwing ability that he has. The Tennessee game, you turn it on, it's nothing but highlights. It's nothing but good. Like, there may have been 1 or 2 mistakes that were, I guess, so-called big, but like Stu was saying, it was one thing after another that just make you go, wow, holy crap. Like, that's the reason that if you hear Frank Reich talk about, oh, there's a top pick of the draft, that's the one that's going to make you think he's number one. You watch Kentucky, you're thinking 3rd or 4th round. But I don't have a solid I guess, take on where he should go just yet, because I still got a lot of tape to go through. But as of right now, I would say this is just purely rating guys, not where I think they should go or where they will go. I would have him like as a 2nd round talent. That's not where he should go or where he will go. But when you look at the top players in this draft, there's a lot of good defensive talent. There's a lot of good offensive linemen in this class. So I would have him as a 2nd rounder. But in terms of where I think he should go and will go, somewhere in the top 10, obviously. Like, someone's going to get a little needy, and someone's going to feel like, okay, this is when we should take a chance on him. Is he at number 1? I don't know. I would think that if Carolina wants to take him, that they'll move back, because they can get some picks back, and they're more than likely still going to be able to get him. But I don't know. It's a tough one to figure out.
It almost feels like, excuse me, it almost feels like we were having the same conversation about Malik Willis last year.
Absolutely.
But like Richardson, I'll give him the benefit of the doubt. He seems like a better overall player. He's got more in his toolbox than Malik Willis did. But it's kind of the same doubts in terms of like, this game he's like on point, the next game he's not, this game he is. I'm kind of trying to find the one out of these 4. We haven't talked about Bryce Young and CJ Stroud really yet. I'm leaning this week, I should say this week, I'm leaning more towards that guy that has the it factor. And out of the 4, I think it's Bryce Young. And like, I keep trying to talk myself out of Bryce Young, but like, there's so much tape and commentary on him from football minds I respect, Nick Saban, Frank Reich. And actually, I pulled a clip here where all the stuff they're doing in the pro days, the combine, all that stuff, it's really kind of like to reinforce what you saw. But it feels like the Panthers front office is really using what's on tape. Like, they're using what they did in live game situations to kind of make this evaluation. And then going to see them on these pro days is just to reevaluate and to see how they are as people and that kind of thing. Here, I pulled this from the owners meetings that have been going on this week. Frank Reich actually spoke with some Panther reporters. Here's Frank talking about their process and what they do with all 4 of these quarterbacks in terms of trying to narrow this down.
Joe, a lot of it was confirmation, because our scouts do such a good job on the front end, right? So we all sat down, back in our building, talking about, each of these guys, listening to the scouts give their take on each of these guys. So, you already go in having some idea of what you're walking into, but I would say in all the right ways, it was confirmation. You talk to these guys and you see, Scott said this, I've said this, hey, all these guys at the top are worthy of being in this discussion. And some for different reasons than others, some more the same. But those things I think get confirmed.
You just signed DJ Chark. We haven't talked.
Lost my tab there. So yeah, I mean, it sounds like, they took the whole front office. Yeah, they're all down there, they're watching and everything. But it feels like it feels like they traded up to number one and they already knew who they had as the leader in the clubhouse, like when they made the trade. And now everything after the trade is to convince them off that box. My question is, who was that guy? Was it Bryce Young or was it CJ Stroud? Because it seems like it's separated to those two guys at the top. And I'm wondering if it's Bryce Young and they're trying to get talked out of it, because everything I've seen about Bryce Young, he just has this it factor to him. You know what I'm talking about? That thing that you can't really describe that's around a player. Players gravitate to them. They want to follow them. Cam Newton had it. Andrew Luck had it. Pat Mahomes has it. Out of these four quarterbacks, who's the one that has that it factor? Because I feel like CJ Stroud does not have it, but he has everything else. Like, he has all the tools. Like, and that's where I'm stuck at right now. So that's the opinion I want to get from you guys. Out of these four, who's the one that has that it? Does Richardson have that it factor?
Richardson has the it factor to me, but definitely Young. Young is the it factor to me. I mean, his poise in the pocket. I mean, he can do Patrick Mahomes types of things, right? Not the size factor, but I mean, at the end of the day, these quarterbacks is going to get hit. And when you get hit in the NFL, college is college. I mean, these guys are. I mean, he played in the SEC, so he knows how to get. He knows what it's going to feel like to get hit by an NFL player, pretty much. But like every play, like you are deceptible. Like you're just out there against men that know what they're doing, and they will punish you if they get a chance. And and being so poised in the pocket, you're going to be like in harm's way. You know what I'm saying? You're not the type of guy that's really trying to escape. And you're going to get hit. That scares me.
Does this size scare you?
It does. I mean, because like because if he gets hit, and I mean, I know he's a guy that's been in this. He's been his size his whole life, like, and he's overcome a lot of adversity, a lot of naysayers, a lot of guys that talking about his size all his life. And kudos to him, you know what I'm saying? So, but like to put your pick in that, you're drafting a guy, you want him to stay healthy. Like, I just don't know where that makes sense for me.
Schuyler, what are your thoughts on Bryce and his size?
Well, to kind of piggyback off what Stu was saying too, like you give up all of what you gave up to go up to number one. And if you take that kid who is one of, you don't see that kind of size in a quarterback hardly ever. There's only been a couple of them that have ever been successful. So if you risk taking him, giving what you gave up, and it doesn't work out, like you're never going to hear the end of it. So
like the whole staff is sitting here watching all these quarterbacks, so you can't blame it on one guy. It's like 12 people down there.
The one thing I have to say about like this whole process, and I'm glad you brought up that video with Frank, because I think he kind of led on to that a little bit. I don't think they went to any of these pro days going, all right, we're going to see who separates themselves, because they're not going to figure out who they're going to take based off these pro days. Like when they go to these things, they're just kind of seeing it live, seeing it up front, get a better feel for it. It's not, okay, Bryce Young's our favorite going into this, but we'll see if one of these other three guys can top him at their pro day. No, you're not going to get that. Pro day doesn't mean anything. To me, it doesn't, because you're going to have guys running, free, doing whatever routes they want to do. They're going to cater some of these workouts to whatever they like to do best. Some of them will try to show off some things. But again, you're not having pressure in your face. You're not having to read coverages. You're not having any of that stuff. So it's hard to really get to fall in love with anybody, especially after what Zach Wilson did, 2 years ago. Everyone was so amazed. Oh, he's the next Patrick Mahomes. And, how's that working out for him?
Yeah.
So, I don't get enamored with these pro day things. I really don't. But when I go and watch Bryce Young, I mean, like you guys say, I mean, the it factor is there 100%, but it scares me to death. If I'm the general manager scares me to death to take him number 1. Scares me to death to take him at all, because I can't invest my future into a kid that if he takes one shot and it knocks him out, what are you going to do? You have to hit the reset button again. And I don't know if I'd be willing to do that, because if you have another quarterback that's right there neck and neck with him, and I think CJ Stroud is every bit as talented, I'm probably going to lean toward the guy that may have a better chance of being durable and taking those hits.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I don't know.
I saw a picture of Kyler Murray and Bryce Young standing side by side online earlier this week. I think it was for like a Nissan commercial, the Heisman House or whatever. And Kyler and they're both like 5'10", but Kyler's thicker. Like he's
big boy.
Yeah, Bryce is very slight, his frame, and I think his height doesn't bother me because of the way the NFL is nowadays. I mean, the quarterback can't get touched, but from here to here anyway. So I mean, that part of it don't really bother me too much because it seems like he's very comfortable in these long dropbacks, these deep dropbacks in the pocket. He doesn't scramble around like Kyler does to get into a throwing lane. He can throw it from the middle of the field. It's more that slight frame, and everything both you guys just said kind of bothers me about him too. It's the one sticking point. If he was like 15 pounds heavier, or
if he was 2 inches taller,
yeah, then I'd be fine with him. 6 foot, that's Michael Vick size, pretty much. 6 foot, 200.
Those smaller quarterbacks, like Michael Vick was kind of a smaller quarterback, like you say. Kyler Murray, like those guys had one thing that Bryce Young doesn't, and that was the threat to run the football, right? And I know RG3 wasn't really a small quarterback, but he had that element to his game that made him different. If Bryce Young can't escape pressure, and I know he can. We've seen it on tape. Like he has the ability to get away from pressure, but I don't know. Like to me, if I'm taking a guy that high that has that size, he's got to be able to run like a Lamar Jackson or like a Kyler Murray. Like he doesn't have that type of mobility to him, even though he can get away.
Yeah. Rich H says it's open mailbag day, guys, so you guys can chime in. He says, I love Bryce in so many ways, but there's never been a successful quarterback at 5'10". How big is Russell Wilson?
5'11", probably.
And Drew Brees was like that too, wasn't he? Like 5'11" or so. But I mean, we're talking Drew Brees is a top 5 quarterback of all time, and Russell Wilson.
The one thing that if you're Scott Fitter and you are leaning towards Bryce Young, the one thing you can bank on as well, like just look at the offensive line. We got a top 10 offensive line unit, so you don't have to worry about it as much. But if you have injuries up front, then all of a sudden it becomes a concern.
And you've got skill position players in place. So like he's not getting parachuted into nothing. Like everything Fitter said last year around this time in terms of their ideal situation, they went out and made it happen. They wanted to build a roster so that they could just parachute in a rookie quarterback and go that route. And they've literally done that. Like I'm pretty happy with what they brought in free agency wise on the offensive side of the ball. And knowing we have pick 39, which is basically a late first round pick pretty much. They can go for where BPA. They can go best player available there. They can pick up a wide receiver. They can pick up a cornerback. People forget Dante Jackson tore his Achilles. At the end of the year, he might not be ready at the beginning of next season. How much do you trust C.J. Henderson to start on that other side? Do you want to go get a rookie cornerback to challenge there? Like they can do all these different things that they couldn't do before, and a lot of it's due to the due diligence of the front office. So I'm very happy that they're being very thorough. They've been very thorough with everything they've done since Frank Wright's come in terms of how many people they interviewed for the coaching staff, the people they brought in for the coaching staff, going all these pro days, bringing 13 people from the front office to each of these pro days, like on a plane or 2 planes or whatever David Tepper did. Like they're being very, very thorough. And I heard someone say that this is David Tepper showing off. And I don't think it is at all. I think he's just this is what he wanted to do the first time, and kind of trusted the previous regime to do it for him. And this time you're seeing him be more hands-on in terms of being the owner and kind of letting Scott Fitter and Frank Wright kind of drive this train. So I'm happy with what they've done so far. I do think it's Stroud or Bryce Young. And I think they're going to use these next couple of weeks to kind of decide between the two of those. Another quarterback that we need to probably talk about here before we get out is Lamar Jackson. We've talked about him a little bit here and there. as it's been going on, but things changed on Monday. So head coach John Harbaugh is at the owners' meetings. He's getting ready to sit down and talk to reporters, and this had to be like planned because as soon as he sat down, Lamar fires off a tweet basically saying that, you know, he wants to be traded. He asked to be traded on March the 2nd, which was a month ago, which was complete surprise to everybody in the know because we didn't know he'd already asked to be traded. The Ravens haven't received any offer sheet on him. Any team that signs him with the non-exclusive tag on him right now, he'd have to sign the tag, and then they would have to give up 2 first-round picks to get him, which might be why he hasn't received an offer. Has Lamar priced himself out of the market? Because it feels like he's trying to get Deshaun Watson money, and the Ravens aren't going to give that to him. If there was a team out there that would give it to him, I'd assume they would have done it by now. Did he price himself out the market, or are we seeing something else going on here? Stu, let's start off with you. What are your thoughts on this situation, being a former player?
I just don't understand why he hasn't, how any of this is still being talked about. It's been managed poorly, I think, by the Baltimore Ravens. And at the end of the day, Lamar Jackson is a player of a lifetime. So how things got to this point, I feel like there will be more to come out about why it's gotten to this point. Because clearly Lamar Jackson is fed up and he's tired of people saying like, dude, just take the money, or hey, I think at the end of the day, the negotiations aren't just, oh, $200 million deal, just take it. What does that $200 million deal consist of? Because at the end of the day, he did get hurt last year, right? If I'm him, I'm thinking to myself, I need something that is in writing that guarantees me that you trust in me. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that you're going to actually invest in me because this position that I play is important. And if I get hurt, like, you know, I need something that's going to solidify, you know, my family, my livelihood, my worth, my value, and my time. And so clearly he loves the game of football. Pay the man. And that's just me speaking from a player. You know what I'm saying? So, I mean, as far as like the agents, you know, him not having an agent, you know, for me personally, I had an agent because I didn't want to make that part of my business. You know what I'm saying? Like, my business is to play football. And, you know, for him, if he feels like he has it all under control and, you know, with his family and whatnot, you know, kudos to them, but they got to get something worked out because right now you're wasting time. You're tapping now into the off season where you should be prepping your mind on plays, you know, being with your teammates, and keeping that chemistry going. So I think right now the clock is ticking for anyone involved.
That was the first thing that really came to my mind, and you touched on it there, Stu, in terms of what are the players in the Ravens locker room thinking right now, like in terms of like watching this unfold?
They're probably ticked off.
Yeah, I mean, it makes them feel kind of like, I would think, it make them feel like, well, hell, if they're not going to pay our leader, what are they going to do when it's my turn? When I come up to my contract, are they going to shortchange me too? Like, it's going to affect the franchise going forward for years if they can't get this straightened out. And Lamar, when he put that tweet out, it did sound like he's done. Like, he's not playing in Baltimore. Like, they're messing with his money. They're messing with his body. He ain't having it. Like, we've never seen this before. We've never seen a former league MVP in his mid-20s basically in this situation where usually the team they figure it out and they lock him up. Like, the last time maybe it was Dak and the Cowboys, and he basically went out and played and broke his ankle. And the Cowboys ended up having to pay more money than what they would have had to pay if they just gave him the original thing in the first place, which is going to be the exact same thing that happens here. It's like real estate. Like the value's never going to
appreciation.
go down. Yeah,
appreciation.
It's keep going up and up and up, and it's like the Ravens are waiting for like a moment to get them on discount. It's like, what are you doing? Like that's not going to happen. Like you made this guy. He's 80% of your offense. Like if you take him away, that's that. Then that division with Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Cincinnati, come on, man, it's done. You're a wrap. Like you, and the dude's won 40-something games or whatever for you in the past like 5 years. Like
ain't no more big trust.
Like what's the correct? Well, this is something I asked in the pregame that we were talking here earlier. Who would you rather have? Would you rather have? Well, maybe here's a better question. Who would you rather have? Would you rather have Deshaun Watson before all the stuff happened when he was considered a top 5 quarterback, or would you rather have Lamar Jackson now?
Lamar Jackson now. Period.
I'd have Lamar Jackson every day of the week. And like I said before the show, I would take 12 games of Lamar Jackson than 17 of Deshaun Watson. So, I think that's that big of a difference. So
if that's the case, because we're unanimous, I'd pick Lamar too. If all three of us can see it, then what are the Ravens looking at? Is it just simply a matter of they don't want to give up that much guaranteed because it sets a precedent? Or
I mean, if you think about last year when that trade went down for Deshaun, the whole league was pissed at Cleveland. They were livid because now that set kind of like the precedent. Like, oh, we got to give our quarterbacks guaranteed money. And that's why I don't know if this is part of it or not, but maybe the rest of the league is like, we don't want to be the one that essentially creates this new trend of having to pay quarterbacks guaranteed money, because I think the Cleveland thing is kind of its own thing because it was a trade. It wasn't really free agency. If you get into this thing where you start offering quarterbacks that are free agents, which, I mean, obviously Lamar's not a free agent. I mean, technically he is. He's a restricted free agent. But if you're that next team that starts this thing, everyone's going to be ticked at you, and you're going to ruin relationships around the league. It's not going to go well. So I don't know if that's part of it, but I feel like at some point somebody you would think still even then would be willing to risk it for Lamar Jackson. I know I would, and I've said it a couple of weeks ago. Like, I know it would probably not be the most ethical thing to do because you have your own quarterback that you just drafted a year ago. But if I'm the freaking Pittsburgh Steelers, I'm putting in an offer sheet, and it's either you give them to me or I jack up the price so you have to pay them all that money. Now,
I don't know why that hasn't happened. Yeah, no one's even done that. So
and there's some pettiness in that division. Let's not be fooled. I'm surprised it hasn't happened either. But again, you doing that, you would almost have to have a sit down with Kenny Pickett and be like, look, we're just doing this to do this, but they would never do that. The team that I still can't wrap my brain around about why they won't do this is the freaking Tennessee Titans. You are not going anywhere with Ryan Tannehill. His best football is behind him. What are you going to do? Rely on Malik Willis? Are you going to trade up for Will Levis? Like, where's your future? If you're not going to go and put in an offer sheet for Lamar Jackson, why not just trade Derrick Henry and strip the whole thing down?
That rumor was out there that they were shopping Derrick Henry at the combine, if I'm not mistaken, that they were looking around. Hey, keep tires on Derrick Henry. So I mean, Tennessee makes sense. I thought the Raiders made sense.
Y'all remember when I said Lamar Jackson and Tennessee Titans?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was Dove Kleiman or somebody on Twitter had put out something a week or so ago where it was rumored that the Titans were willing to do something to that effect. It's making me feel like the teams don't want to do it because of the non-exclusive tag, because all they're going to do is basically set a negotiating price for the Ravens. We're like, say you are Tennessee and say you come in and you're like, okay, we're not going to give you $239 or whatever it is that Deshaun got, but we'll give you $215 and we'll make 180 of it guaranteed. The Ravens can just match it, right?
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, we at least you would think, but I wonder if some of it too is teams don't want to tip their hat for what they want to do in either free agency later on in the summer or in the draft. Because if you're a team that is willing to give up, say, $200 million guaranteed to a quarterback, that doesn't guarantee you that quarterback. That shows you right then and there, we're going to be aggressive for a quarterback one way or another. So if we don't get them all of a sudden you're going to trade up. So I think that is part of it too. So I don't think this thing is going to play out before the draft. It's going to happen afterward.
Yeah, I agree with that. Rich says Stu is right. Lamar in Tennessee fits their preferred offense, would be a great fit, but also get him out of the AFC North would get him into the AFC South, which would be a much more winnable division. Well, Jacksonville's on the come up. I don't know. We'll see.
But there's nothing to be feared over, I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, you put him in Tennessee and you put some things around him. I think a lot of it too is the asking price because
Schuyler, you made a really good point about this draft. Like, and everybody's kind of like silence about Lamar right now. Like, I feel like this is definitely like it's like domino effect, right?
Yep.
Like the free agents have been signed that, the top free agents. Clearly, Lamar Jackson is the biggest talks of any type of trade or any type of movement right now, but nothing can be moved because right now there's people at the front of the draft that need quarterbacks. And so if you did anything to say, okay, yeah, we want Lamar Jackson, you shake up the whole draft.
Yeah.
You shake it all up and you really show your hand. And now anything of any trade or any value or where you want to go, people might not really honor and might look at you like, nah, we're good. You know what I'm saying? Like, because think about that. Like, what if Lamar Jackson went to who else needs a quarterback? Atlanta, right?
Now,
and think about that. Think about from that standpoint, Atlanta and the Carolina Panthers. Ain't nobody showing their hands.
Nah. So for both of those, Arthur Blank actually came out yesterday or day before actually answered the question, why aren't the Falcons going for Lamar Jackson? And he basically said in so many words, I mean, he hasn't finished the past 2 seasons on the field. So it's really hard to justify giving a guy $50 million a year or whatever when he's not finishing the seasons. And I'm like, yeah, but
that's called a smoke signal.
Yeah, that's I don't know, Arthur. You telling the truth on that one, or what's going on? Because Atlanta needs a quarterback.
But with Atlanta, you got to take it like that whole situation. That's exactly what it could be like. I don't take what Arthur Blank said as anything because they could very well be interested in Lamar. And again, if they wanted to move up or if they wanted to get Lamar, why do it now? No one else is doing it. You don't need to press to do it. And if you put that offer sheet in, then all of a sudden a team like Tennessee or maybe even Indianapolis, who's at number 4, they may see that and think, okay, well, if they don't get Lamar Jackson and Baltimore matches that offer sheet, then they're going to try and make that play to get up to number 3 with Arizona. Indianapolis has only got 1 spot to go to get up to number 3. It's a lot easier of a deal for Arizona to drop back 1 spot than to drop back 4 or 5 spots. So I would think that that's exactly the reason why, because I think Atlanta would like to figure out what exactly Lamar would probably want. And if it's not something that they're willing to do, they're not going to put in an offer sheet. They're going to make their move up the board if they are that aggressive and that interested in the quarterback.
A lot of this, too, I think has to do with the quarterback class because the class last year was considerably weak.
If this happened last year, which there was some rumor of it, but if this happened a year ago, I think we would have seen 3, 4, 5, 6 teams put in offer sheets.
Maddie 316 says if this would have happened last year, there would have been a 12-team Royal Rumble type steel cage match fighting to the death for Lamar. It is WrestleMania weekend, so shout out to Maddie 316 for bringing up some wrestling jargon. James Cap, what's up, James? James Capo says the full guarantee is pricing himself out of the market. The Browns had to give the fully guarantee because no top-tier quarterback wanted to play there. That's Cleveland. Also, if Indy or Atlanta sign him now, it's a top 10 pick. If they sign him May 1st, it's next year's pick, and hopefully you'll be giving up picks in the 20s. That's a good thing there too. If you wait till after the draft, you're not giving up first round picks in this year's draft. You're giving up picks going forward, and who knows where you're going to be picking at that point. So,
and really to that same point, and plus the one I just made, like if you're Indianapolis, there's a lot of rumors about maybe he'd go there, but again, if you put that in, you don't get him, then that's going to prompt a trade from someone at 7, 8, or 10, or 12, or whatever to jump 1 spot ahead of you with Arizona. And then you're going to be sitting there with the 4th best quarterback.
Yeah, after doing all that. Something, too, that maybe irritated me a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you why we mad, son.
The whole I had mentioned earlier in the year, David Tepper's the I think he's the second or third richest owner now, and he was number one until the Walmart money came in and they bought Denver. People were asking, why aren't the Panthers going after Lamar Jackson? And I get tired of having to keep explaining what Scott Fitterer keeps saying over and over and over again. Like, he keeps saying why they're not going after Lamar Jackson. They're not built to drop Lamar Jackson into this team. It would destroy the salary cap for starters. I'm trying to think of Pat Mahomes last year, but I was trying to think of the last quarterback that wasn't like a top 5 all-time quarterback that won a Super Bowl with a team that was making like top 5 salary, in the league. Tom Brady was taking cuts for years. Again, Pat Mahomes just won it last year after he just signed that extension, but I don't even know if that's kicked in yet.
If Lamar had a Super Bowl ring, it might be a little different.
Yeah.
But, I mean, for a guy that's never won a ring, I mean, he's still very young in his career, but
he's only won one playoff game, right? Isn't he like 1-2 or something in the playoffs?
I can't remember exactly, but I know he hasn't gone deep. I don't know if they've ever made the AFC Championship with him.
No, they hadn't. So it makes it kind of different. Again, it comes back to that whole, who would you rather have? Would you rather have Lamar Jackson today, or would you rather have Deshaun Watson pre-Cleveland, like his last year in Houston when he was pretty much consensus a top 5 quarterback in the league at that point. I mean, it's why he got the deal he got. And I don't know if he'll ever get back to that point again, but he's got that money. So I can see why Lamar would be like, hey, everyone's saying I'm better than this guy. Shouldn't I at least get what he got? But it feels like in the end, Lamar's going to have to settle for less just to get more. I think him and Josh Allen were in the same draft class, right? Was it 2018, 2019, something like that? Josh Allen has made like $40 million more than Lamar Jackson in the same period of time, because Josh Allen already signed his extension and everything else, and Lamar's thing is drug out. And Lamar is only making peanuts compared to the guys that were in that class. Josh Allen, Pat Mahomes was a year or so before him. Joe Burrow's about to cash in. Nobody's questioning how much Joe Burrow's going to get. Joe Burrow's going to probably
Justin Herbert, who hasn't won a playoff game yet.
So it's so what are we really talking about here? What are we really talking about here when it comes to Lamar? Because it feels like there should be more. Is it just simply because he doesn't have an agent? Would this be going faster if he had an agent because he's doing it himself? So maybe they're not taking him as seriously as they would like an agent, or
I'm not really sure, but whatever it is, it makes no doggone sense. They like they're like what's happening right now is the media is like creating this stigma about Lamar Jackson. This isn't about Lamar Jackson and whether or not he's right by wanting more money, because he is right. Leave that to the left. Baltimore Ravens, why haven't you just said, here you go. Whatever you need, whatever you want, we stick by it. Because if you really say that we want you, we'll do anything for Lamar Jackson to make this happen. Why hasn't that anything been done?
Yeah.
Period. Because at the end of the day, you can talk all that talk until that thing is written, and we need that thing in writing, baby. Until it's in writing, it's wrong. So, in a discussion, pay that man.
He needs an agent. Like, we'll do it. We'll figure it out. We'll go over to the 3-man team. We'll get this thing knocked out in 2 days. We're like, look, this is what he wants. This is what gonna get. Come on, let's do it.
and for Lamar, like it doesn't feel good to not feel valued. Like, you've done all the things that's been asked of you besides play hurt, and not by like standard of, oh, he got a bruise on his knee. No, fella, he is hurt, injured.
PCL.
Don't go ask him to do something stupid. Like, that's your job as an organization to keep the players safe. The NFL's job is to keep the players safe. So if you asking this guy to go out there and not be safe, what's wrong with you, right?
Yeah. I don't understand how he comes back to Baltimore now. Like, too much has kind of happened in terms of what's been said, and him being his own agent, like you said earlier, Stu. It puts him in the middle of all this instead of just sitting at home and letting the agent do the work, so it's not getting personal. It becomes personal when you're your agent and you're having to answer questions as to why don't the Ravens want me. That's pretty much what it sounds like. Why don't the Ravens want me?
The agent is usually the buffer of being the bad guy.
Yes.
Right? Like the agent, that's really all at the end of the day. Like my agent, Ben Dogger, like he was the bad guy going to war for me. He was going to bat for me. He was going to provide information of why I was the guy for the Carolina Panthers on my second contract. He did that for me. And so that way I could just go to practice, work out.
Not deal with it. I mean, that's the
Not
whole
deal
point.
with it.
That's the whole point of having it.
I think once the request is put in, like I don't think there's any turning back. At least that I know. I mean, Stu's probably been through several experiences with teammates or whatever, knows about people in the NFL. Maybe you can speak better to it, but I feel like as soon as that trade request goes in, it's like you might as well just go and split ways.
And this wasn't spur of the moment. This has been going on for 2 years. Like they've been negotiating this out for over 2 seasons. So it's not like Lamar woke up on Monday morning and was like, you know what? Let me wait till Coach Harbaugh sits down so I can humiliate him real quick and just throw his tweet out. He ain't even gonna know what's going on. And that's literally what happened. Like he had to have had somebody in the room that knew when Harbaugh was going to sit down. And that's the thing that got me, the pettiness of it. Like he's done. He is done in Baltimore to do it that way. That way.
He did it so that way it was relevant, I think, because he knew that Harbaugh was going to go up there and spew all this BS about how they want him to stay there.
That's exactly what happened. Because like the reporters all saw the tweet, like literally it's Harbaugh sitting down, and Harbaugh hasn't seen it or heard it or anything. So he's sitting there with the grin. We love him. We want him back. That's my guy.
Can't wait to lie to the media.
And the media's all looking at him. Media's all looking at him like, so have you checked
it? Because if this would come out days before or even hours before, you know that PR department is going to say something to Jim.
Oh yeah.
They're going to tell them like, "Hey, this is what was happened. This is what happened on Twitter. This is what you probably need to stay away from, or this is what you can say." They're going to coach them up and tell them what to and what not to say.
Caught with their pants down, pretty much. So Lamar, this felt like a premeditated attack on the Ravens to basically push them into the world of embarrassment where they have to do something with them. Either signing them is past the point now. I don't think that's going to happen, but maybe the Ravens take charge in terms of trying to find a trade partner for them that makes sense for everybody. I don't know, but I don't think he's going to be in Baltimore next year. Real quick before we get out of here, though, I want to touch on this. Rich says, personally, even the Jets should consider Lamar over giving up so much over an upcoming 40-year-old Aaron Rodgers. Thoughts about the Jets? Should the Jets even put their name in there for it and run the risk of upsetting Aaron Rodgers, who – it's not his fault. Green Bay's trying to get something for him, and the Jets aren't willing to give up whatever it is. While the Jets are building the whole roster as if Aaron Rodgers is going to be there, it would be the most New York Jets thing ever if Aaron Rodgers does not end up signing with the Jets, and they've signed all this other stuff, and they got to go with Zach Wilson next year or whatever is happening.
Don't fool around. Don't be trying to get caught talking to two girls at once.
Exactly. Yeah.
What you got?
Stay away from Lamar. We'll probably have some more on Lamar as this goes because this isn't going to end anytime soon. James with a good point here too. For some reason, no one feels the desperation to sign Lamar. Cleveland clearly felt that for Deshaun. Had Deshaun signed with Atlanta, Cleveland would still be that desperate. That sounds pretty accurate. And we were one of those teams with the previous regime. We were in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes too. We can't hide the fact that we were trying to get him. We just didn't want to pay a full guaranteed contract. That's the only reason why he's not here. I think Cleveland was at the bottom of his list, but somebody throws $238 million at you to come live in Cleveland. I think all three of us here are going to go live in Cleveland.
Yeah, you can turn Cleveland into Miami for that money.
And on that note, we're going to go ahead and get out of here for the week. We've been doing these a little bit later on in the week, so the next one will probably be later on next week around Thursday or Friday or so. We'll hit you guys up around lunchtime. So for Jonathan Stewart, Schuyler Callihan, I'm Desmond Johnson. You've been listening and watching the Bleav in Panthers podcast here on Bleav Podcast Networks, brought to you by BetOnline.ag. Keep pounding.